Hi everybody, this is Miss Diane, and if you're watching this video, it means I still don't have good internet connection, right? So what I've done is I pre-recorded some videos for you so you can keep having art lessons while I'm trying to get back to somewhere stable where there is civilization and a good Wi-Fi signal, right? So we will use our usual tools today, right? You'll need a pencil. You'll need a pencil sharpener to make sure your pencils are nice and sharp. You'll need an eraser because we erase a lot. You'll need lots and lots of paper so you can make a lot of mistakes. And you'll need a ruler. Now again, today we are not going to be measuring with the ruler, right? So the measuring parts don't matter so much. It just matters that you've got a straight edge. So if you don't have a ruler, you can just use a piece of paper folded once or twice to give you a nice crispy edge. And you can use that for drawing the straight lines that you'll need. All right, here we go. Let's review. If you're watching this one, you have already seen the first two videos. Let's talk about those. We were talking about lettering in our first video, and we were making block letters. And basically what that means is we were putting together a whole bunch of blocks in a Frankenstein kind of way to make the letters that we needed. And we use the word "the" because it's got nice square letters, no curves, no, nothing, no tricky letters like a letter S. Right? So we started off by making block letters. And then we added the sides of the letters too. So we're looking at the face of these blocks, right square on, but we can also see a little bit of the sides. And as an artist, you get to decide which side you want to see. So if you think of your paper like a compass, here's north, and here's south, and here's east, and here's west, which I erased, right? And this is northeast, because it's between north and east, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. We decided that these lines were going to be up towards the northwest. So from every corner of these square letters, we drew a line going up to the northwest. And we connected those lines up, and that allowed us to make the sides of each of these block letters. So we could see both the side and the face. And we blended, and we toned, and we just went for the fun of it, added some shadows on the ground so these letters look like they're big and solid and sitting there on the ground. So that was our first experiment in block letters. Then we talked about other things you can add to letters to create your own font. Now, when you were born, you have your own handwriting. Everyone's handwriting is very unique, and that is your font. There are other fonts you can write in as well, besides your everyday handwriting. And there are tricks you can do and things you can add to basic letters to make them really interesting. So, for example, this is just a block letter. These are just block letters, but we added something called a serif, which is a little bit of decorative stuff put on the ends of your letter stroke. So that's here and here, and here and here, and on the letter T it's on the ends and the bottom. And that makes a block letter suddenly very fancy. There are also toothpick letters made just with skinny lines. You can add serifs to them as well. Right? Here's another kind of example of serifs, circles. Sometimes teachers at school like to use this font. It's kind of a fun one, just putting circles at the end of your letter strokes. You can also vary the thickness. That means you can combine block letters with toothpick letters and get some other new fonts. So in this one, we decided that all the up and downs, all the verticals would be blocks, and all the horizontals would be toothpicks. So combining block letters and toothpick letters, we made a new font. And of course, we added serifs as well because they're always nice. Now, just because you have a block letter doesn't mean you have to color it in solid, right? You can also fill it in with a pattern. Now, we then went and explored other letters that are not so easy as the T and the H and the E. Like these letters right here are all in a letter, ooh, a bug. These letters are all in a letter family. They all have goalposts right here that hold them up. So when you're making letter H, put the goalposts in first and then put the cross piece. When you're making the letter N, same thing, goalposts and then put the cross piece. Same thing for the M, goalpost and then the V part right there. Then there's some backbone letters like a D and a B and a P and an R, where you put in the backbone first, this block right here, and then hang the rest of it off of it. Now the tricky letters are the ones that are round. So with the O, you make the outside part, then the inside part. And use an O to help you make the other letters as well, like a C. Just make an O and cut out that part with your eraser. Or a G. Same thing. And that keeps you from making a C that looks more like a banana, right? This is a better looking C than this one is. So start with your O and then cut out the parts you don't need. And then lastly, we talked about the letter S, and that was pretty tricky. We took a good deal of time on that. You draw the top of the S and the bottom of the S first. And we'll do the S again in a later lesson to help us remember how that goes. And you can also mix them up. This is letter U is 2 goalposts plus a letter O. So you mix all your parts together to make the letters that you like. We practiced making all the letters in block form. And this one here, we came up with a new one here made with dots. There are 6 dots in every one of those backbones or goalposts. I don't know what we'll do with the letter C though, right? I haven't made a decision on that. Let me practice all the way through the end. That was our first lesson on letter design and font design. Now you watched the second video probably as well, and that's when we started to play around with ideas that weren't about blocks, right? So first we started off with block letters, okay, on day 1, but on day 2, we realized our letters can be fat and round. We can make letters shaped like balloons, or like clouds, or like anything. So this font I would call balloon, right? And we added shading as well to make sure those balloons look nice and round. We put some extra shading on the bottom so it seems like the light is coming from one direction. And then we also talked about layout. So the letters that you use is one graphic arts decision, but how you put them on the page is another graphic arts decision. So we decided we were going to make a postcard about voting. So we wrote a bunch of voting thoughts on a piece of paper. This is our thinking paper to figure out what kind of words we wanted to say. And we didn't want to encourage someone to vote any particular way. We just wanted to make sure that they went out to vote. That's the most important thing. Go and vote. How you vote is up to you, but everyone should do it. So we decided on your vote matters, because that's a simple set of words that we could use. And we figured out we would put them on our paper, stack them up, vote, your vote, and matters right on our postcard like that. And we would want to be sure that they are centered. We want to make sure those words are centered, not just all off to one side. We want to make sure there's the same amount of empty space on both sides of it. So this is our layout that we came up with. We drew this line right here to help us know where the center was, and then we built our letters outwards, because the word your has got 4 letters. That means 2 of them are going to be on this side of the center, and 2 of them are going to be on that side of the center. So the first letters we did were the O and the U, and then we spelled outward from there. Then we put the R and the Y. Same thing for vote. These 2 letters went in first, and then these 2 letters. And then same thing for matters. The letter T we figured out was the letter in the middle, because there's 1, 2, 3 letters on this side, 1, 2, 3 letters on that side. So this T went right here in the center, right here. That was our starting letter, was the center one. And then we put on drop shadows and things. And I think from this we learned that our letters need to be a little bit smaller, because look, it got to be a little crowded on the end. And then we played a little bit more with letters with the last bit of time that we had. We made some block letters with the shading on the sides, right? But then we erased the letters and left only the shading. And then here is when we made actually true shadows. It looks like these letters are made of paper and sitting near to a wall with a bright light in front of them. So it looks like the shadow is being cast behind them. And then we did this last one that makes it look like they're made of stone. We'll talk about this again another day when we do curvy letters. This is a fun trick. Okay, so that was day 2. Let's move on to day 3. All right, day 3. Let's talk about centering. Need a fresh piece of paper. And so today we're going to center 3 words right here, just to practice about centering, because there's some details about centering that I want you to know about. So I figured out that my ruler is just about the size my letters should be. That's a good size for me. So I'm going to put my ruler right here in the middle of my paper, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw a line above and a line below. And that makes a perfect size for me. Right? I'll do that again, top and bottom, so I'll have 3 lines for my artwork today. 1, 2, 3. And to help me figure out where I'm going, I'm also going to put this center line in here, my midline. So all of my lettering will have a top line, a bottom, a base line, and a midline. That will help me keep my letters nice and perfect. Okay, here we go. Now from here, I I also need to know where is the center of my paper. And I'll just do that with my eye. That's good, right there. That is my center line. And I trust my eye. And there's the center of my paper. So now I'm ready to begin. Now the first thing I'm going to do is do a simple name, a short name. What if your name is Bob? If your name is Bob, what letter goes in the middle? The O. So let's put the O in here first, right in the center. And we're not going to spend a lot of time making these letters perfect today, because this is not what this project is about. This is just about figuring out about centering. And there's my O, right there in the middle. And that makes sure that I have the same amount of empty space on both sides. And next comes my letter B. I'm going to do this one the Frankenstein way because I have trouble with B's. I think B's are a little tricky. And you can do this in any font you want. It doesn't really matter which font you use today for this. I'm going to do block letters because I like to practice my block letters. I'll take out my guideline or my Frankenstein lines. What I end up with is the same amount of empty space on both sides because I started with my center letter. Now we're not going to spend a lot of time making those letters perfect. Let's move on to our next name. What if your name was Fred? Well, you can see there's 4 letters, so we'll need 2 letters on either side. So we're going to start with the R and the E, and they're going to be both on either side of this center line. Here's my E. And here's my R. And now I can go ahead and add the D and the F. So you start from the middle and you spell out. So far, so good. Now, what if your name is Diane? Which mine is Diane. There is a tricky letter in the name Diane, and you may also have this tricky letter, and it is the letter I. The letter I is the only letter in this block letter alphabet that is skinny. All the others are the exact same width, right? They're all the same, except the letter I. Now, there's a couple of ways to draw a letter I. I usually do my I like this, a plain one like that, but you can also do an I with a little bit of a serif on it if that makes you feel better, if you like that look. But I think what looks really weird is when you make an I like this. It's just too big and too weird for a letter I for me. You can, but not my favorite. Like, that's too clunky, you know? So I kind of stick with this I, or maybe this I, but mostly I'm a fan of that one, the plain one, and it's way more skinny than the other letters. So when you're centering with the letter A in your name, you want to figure out what the middle letter is, the letter A for me, and the letter I is the one I have to watch out for. So I'm going to take my letter A, and instead of putting it right in the middle, I'm going to shift it over towards the side where the letter I is. So instead, my letter A is going to be over here. So instead of putting the A in the middle, I have to shift it over a tiny bit closer to the side that has an I in it to make sure it works out. And let's put the letter N here. And let's see how well I did on centering. It'll be pretty close. It won't be perfect. That's pretty close. The amount of space on both sides. Maybe that A didn't need to be quite as far, right? So when you've got a letter I in there, you have to shift everything closer over to the side where the I is. So your centering has to be a tiny bit off to begin with, right? You can see my A is shifted this way toward the side where the letter I is. All right, so that is about centering. So what you need to do is find your middle letter and line it right up with the center of your paper, and then you spell outwards, right? Then you spell this away. Right? You don't spell from the beginning over. You start in the middle and work your way out. Now, so far, we've been working with guidelines that are straight and parallel. But what if we decided we wanted to make our guidelines not straight? What if we wanted to make our guidelines not straight? Let's see what happens. Ready? Fresh piece of paper. What if we wrote the word rainbow? But we wanted the word rainbow to be shaped like a rainbow. Much more fun that way. So the first thing we need to do is get some guidelines down here to help us. So we're going to make a rainbowy, I just turn my paper a little bit. There's my guideline. Do this light in case you hate it and want to change it. Remember, your hand wants to make this curvy shape, right? So help your, let your hand do that for you. It doesn't want to draw a straight line. And then I need a top line. Do this lightly because you may need to erase these if you don't get them the way you like them at first. And here is my midline. There we go. That's pretty good. Erase that. Okay. So there's my guidelines to get my rainbow. Oh, that's too skinny here. Yeah, that's better. That's better. All right. Now I also need to know where's the middle. Right about here. There's the middle. So I have rainbow guidelines, and I've got my center marked. I want to think about the word rainbow. What's the center letter of rainbow? The letter N. Like that's going to be my center letter. So my N's going to go right here. But what happens? Look, there's a letter I. Aha. Which means I have to shift everything towards the side of the letter I. So instead of putting my N right here, I'm going to put my N a little bit off to this side, which is the side of the I. Right? The I is on this side. So here we go. Here's my letter N. I'm just going to make toothpick letters for today. Make sure your letters touch the top and bottom every time. There's my N for rainbow. Once I've got the N in there in the right place, because it's a center letter, but it's moved a little bit to the left because there's a letter I here on the left. Move it towards the letter I. Now I'm ready to put in the rest of my letters. Rainbow. Here's the B. And it would be fun to do these letters in rainbow colors or... Oh, here's where my midline's going to help because I want to make a W like that. Rainbow. Yeah, the midline is very helpful for making sure I line up my B and my W. Here's my letter I. Here's my letter A. Here's my letter R. And it's got the same amount of spacing on both sides. So by starting in the middle and compensating for the letter I, you can center pretty well. You can center pretty well. And then I go back and I can make these letters beautiful, and I can make them rainbow colors, or I can draw a rainbow. There's a whole bunch of stuff I can do, but I mostly wanted to concentrate on getting that shape. So your guidelines don't have to be straight. Your guidelines can be curvy or wiggly. You can make them going, in a snake and write the word snake. I mean, there's a bunch of things you can do with your guidelines to help you. And then, of course, you can take your guidelines out. Like when I erase these, then it will just be the letters forming a rainbow, right? I don't need the guidelines now. Once I erase those, these letters will be forming the rainbow all by themselves without any help. You can see how that would look once those lines come out, right? We'll take the top ones out just so you can see what it looks like. There you go. I'll get the middle ones out later. You don't want to watch me erase, right? Okay. So we've done centering. We've done centering with guidelines that are not straight. Let's explore some other things about guidelines that are not straight. So for example, what if we wanted to write the word loud or louder? What if we wanted to encourage people to speak up and to be heard? What if we wanted to encourage people to use their voice in a more loud way? We would want we could just write the word louder in our regular everyday handwriting, but that would not be nearly as much fun. So instead of making our guidelines today straight and parallel, we're going to make our guidelines get bigger as they go this way today. So let's start off with 2 guidelines. They get a little bit bigger as they go across the page, like that. Can you see those 2 guidelines are not, focus up, there we go. The 2 guidelines are not parallel. Here's my midline to help me out. And here's my top line. I'll make it a little darker so you can see it better. Here's my baseline. Now I'm going to write the word louder. And I'm going to do it in block letters so my letters are strong and bold. So I'm going to start over here and I make sure my letters follow those baselines, right? Make sure that follows the baseline right here. L-O U D E, and the E is tricky. Make sure that it stays on the baseline right here. Oh, that center line is helpful. That midline is helping me line up my E correctly. Louder. And of course, I think I need some punctuation here. That makes it look like you should be shouting, right? It just makes the word have much more impact. So my choice of guidelines, making them not parallel, making them get further away as we go down the word, is what's helping this word have more impact. Now, I don't know about this font, though. What if I did a different kind of font that would look like sound waves or something? Let's see if we can try that one more time. Let's make 2 more guidelines.